morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 11 o'clock business meeting in which we discuss a few items that include public works, building and planning, facilities maintenance, purchasing, parks, and miscellaneous. We're a little late, for which we apologize, for which I apologize.
He's in that one. I'm not.
First up is building and planning, apparently.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. In front of you tomorrow is the Campground and Recreational Facilities Code, which actually is the new binding site plan for campgrounds and recreational vehicles. It is in partnership with our environmental health unit and our Board of Health. We brought forward or brought to you the picture of the RV. And this is what we'd like to present tomorrow to the board and the public, but we just wanted to kind of have the board look through it, make sure you didn't see any hiccups, or if there was something in addition that you would want us to present to the board and the public during the public meeting. We're looking for direction on that. So
Tracy, you know that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Are you suggesting that our code is now fuzzy?
It's logic.
we can make that clearer for you. Yes. We didn't want to put specifics on there.
And I do want to compliment staff. I believe this was a high priority for the department back in 2013 when I joined the commission. And we've got it.
Hey,
I know
comp
it's been
plan's
tough to
done.
get everything together, and other higher priorities have come in, but we've been working on it with you, especially the last 6 months. So I appreciate.
And it's been 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
So it's been since 2021 that they really kind of buckled down and worked through it, separated environmental health and Board of Health regulations from county code. So
Yeah.
we've tried to clear the path and make it easier for the developer or the.
So the document you're showing us is available for the public to see if they worked their way through the tree on the commission.
We don't have it on there. We were just doing it through paper copies with the board today for discussion, but we're going to have a presentation tomorrow with this on the screen, and it will be available. We can make it available today if the board's okay with it.
Yeah, if you would make it available today, because we want to consider whether we adopt this or not
Yep.
tomorrow. So let's give the public a little chance to. look at it.
Absolutely. We'll put it on our website as soon as we get out of here.
Okay.
So we tried to do the history of why why the update was needed. And then what the code changes and the priorities were. And then all the steps that have been taken since 2021 and all the workshops and site visits and planning commission workshops. The SEPA was completed, and then 2 different public hearings were held. And then we put in, or Adam put in, RV and campground quick facts of kind of how we got here and just some basic history information for the county. And then as part of the planning commission, the second to the back page where it's kind of got the explosion of the little bubbles of everything that was considered, health and sanitation to fire code, code enforcement, homelessness, heads and beds, pre-existing. So everything that was included when all of these changes were brought forward. And I can turn it over to Adam and see if he, do you want anything, say anything?
Before you do that, I always like the cliff notes, and the public probably likes the cliff notes. So I would bypass a lot on the history and just say, well, part of anything should be an abstract that says, this is the problem we tried to solve, and this is how we solved it. And then you go through for all the detail on it. So maybe you could go down that line.
Will do.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. And I think staff did approach this with that in mind. And a key couple advantages to this code update that I would point out are the existing code is fairly silent on what you're supposed to do with the expansion of a pre-existing park. And of course, we have a lot of existing parks, so that's a lot of the business that comes through the door. And so the new code addresses that and provides a good way for staff to figure out how much of a change is requested or how much of an expansion is requested and how to deal with that, what process it should go through. And with the input of the park owners, this draft, I think provides a really good solution for that problem.
Okay, I still don't see a problem. A problem is I'm a citizen and I want to take advantage of recreation and campground. How am I impacted? What was it before there was a problem that I as a citizen couldn't use, but I will be able to after this does pass?
Well, the example I'd point to is an existing park may want to add a couple spaces. They found a way to reconfigure or some changes were made and then less storage was needed. So they approached the department with that idea and the department has to apply the existing code, which puts them through this process of, oh, it's like you're building a new park. And the park owner says, no, I've found a way to add a few spaces. It's a small change. And so with this code update, that small change gets treated in a way that's not a burden on the park owner. So they can make that expansion. Larger expansions, of course, there's another process for them to go through, but the smaller expansions will be processed quickly and it'll be clear and straightforward.
So is it fair to say you're trying to make it easier for a service provider to provide additional camping spaces?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's
Okay.
very fair.
So the fundamental problem was an onerous bureaucracy?
The code wasn't nuanced enough to deal with a pretty common occurrence, which is small expansions, small modifications. The new code's very clear about what applies and when.
Haven't we also experienced just a change in society's approach to campgrounds? With homelessness, they become sort of a permanent residence, then they were never designed for permanent residence, but that's what people can afford. And so you're having to try to adapt rules and regulations to protect the health and safety of those campers in an area that wasn't designed to be permanent, but.
I never quite understood that because if I'm there 5 days, is that permanent? If I'm there a month, is that permanent? I still have to have the same facilities.
So I'm assuming there's a definition on what turns it into a more permanent facility.
Yeah, we provide a definition there on the second to last page of what a campground is. And it is an operation. It's a place that charges rent. So it's organized and it's open to the public.
If you could put a page number on this too, when you publish.
That's the one with the fancy chart.
Yep. The certainly changes have occurred in societal changes. This code, I think, was last updated 1998. And so one of the other big efforts here was to separate out the health department function of this code, which was seated within the development code, within what the planners and the building department was administering. But it was clearly a role for the health department. And so this code effort will be to create a chapter in Title 15 to focus on just the health department responsibilities for campgrounds. and make it clear that that's where that comes from and where that authority is, and then keep the development code about the creation and operation of campgrounds. Well, the creation and maintenance of campgrounds.
We also
And-
have, oh, sorry.
Can you, in addition to the page numbers, can you also enter the Cowlitz County Code number, and maybe since it's electronic, yeah, click on it and boom, I'm there.
Commissioners, I was gonna say, Season Long is here from Environmental Health. If you have any questions on the sanitation or sewer piece of the Board of Health code, because after, we're hopeful that the board adopts ours and tomorrow, then the board will reconvene as the Board of Health and hopefully adopt her pieces of the second part of this ordinance.
Okay, so we reconvene the Board of Health in 3 weeks.
No, 10 o'clock. Right? Yeah, 10 o'clock tomorrow. And then they come back for.
You actually do a Board of Health tomorrow?
Yeah, I was unaware that there was a Board of Health.
I'm sorry, I can't
There's a
understand
public
you.
hearing.
Well, it's a two-part process. Ours needs adopted first. The Gina's on. Can we click Gina in?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Gina.
I just wanted to clarify. Good morning, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, it will just be the Board of County Commissioners hearing tomorrow at 10, not the Board of Health. So they're two separate public hearings because it's separating the codes out, the parts of the code. But it is just the Board of County Commissioners public hearing. The Board of Health has already reviewed and given their
Approved.
approval of the code changes.
Sorry.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
It had me
Clarify
worried
that.
that I've really gone over the edge.
So the Board of Health, Planning Commission, and our legal department has all reviewed and approved and signed off on this, so.
Okay.
We're hopeful to go from 9:45 to 10 seamlessly, we hope. Do you have anything more for us on this?
No.
Okay.
You will be going through this again tomorrow.
Yes, Adam will be presenting tomorrow.
Okay. I don't know if it's proper, if I may request that we follow what I said in terms of, I always like to do things, save people the time. There's a lot of stuff they're not really interested in. You'll be prepared to answer it if it's asked, but
Correct.
how does this impact me? And yeah,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
I did have a question for Susan. In your opinion, will approval of the sanitation ordinance code make your job more difficult or more efficient, or both?
I would say more efficient.
Okay.
It gives us some clarification on authority.
Yeah, you need to go where
Season Long, Environmental Health Manager. Yeah, I believe it'll make things a little easier for us. Having the two separate codes, the authority responsibility well delegated out between the two sections, I think will be very helpful.
And do you anticipate a kind of a public information? So that we don't surprise the owners that all of a sudden when the rules change type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, building and planning's done a great job reaching out to the park owners since the fall of 2021, I believe, when they first went out. They spoke to all the campground owners. They did a bunch of mailings. They were invited to come to the planning commission meetings. The health code was reviewed by the planning commission as well, the draft code. So they had a chance to review it at that time. So I think they've had a lot of opportunities to voice their input into the process.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
the only other thing I have miscellaneous would be, as the week of July 24th, we will be fully staffed downstairs. So all the new hires will be on board and we'll be getting them trained.
Excellent.
Excited. Yeah, excited to have full staff.
Any observations, like earlier you heard how the doc recording fees are going down? Have you seen anything that would?
We haven't seen anything. That's
It just
really doesn't
busy,
affect
busy,
us.
busy.
We've been busy. It's been a little bit slower, but it's with the Epic Maps down right now. That's really a hindrance, but we can manually enter them from our end. So we're doing what we can.
Okay, and last time we met, I asked you approximately how many new homes in quotes, would be coming online in some period of time. Did you have a somewhat refined answer on that?
No, they're still trickling in. The biggest ones we have are single family dwellings, multifamily, and then a lot of ADUs, a ton of ADUs.
A lot of what?
Accessory
Oh,
dwelling
ADUs,
units.
yeah.
Yeah, we are having a lot of those. That's probably one of our bigger permits.
A lot translates into 100.
No, not that many, but that would be a lot. Yeah.
So I did have a chance to look through the reports that,
Megan sends up.
that was a new name, different name,
Oh,
somebody else.
Yeah,
I
it
can't
was a new
remember. Anyway, on all those, I was a little surprised that
Lindsay.
we're about 25% below where we were a year ago.
yeah.
And a third below where we were on planning clearances from a year ago.
But we
That
are
seems like a lot, especially as we're adding staff, because that doesn't reflect the speed with which we're processing them. But any observations on why the slowdown or why the
I think the
not
interest
slowdown,
rates
I
are
don't mean to
killing
say
us.
slowdown. I mean just the sheer drop in numbers.
Well, we have a lot of extensions on building permits and sheer numbers I can't speak to, other than I think the interest rates are killing people when it comes to for single family dwellings, just to take out a loan and build. We have a lot of extensions on permits because of still they're not being able to get the materials that they need to finish their homes. So
Okay,
we have a
so-
lot of extensions too going on.
Okay. And there was also a big industrial building permit, $42 million worth. That also skews the funding.
Correct.
And I'm assuming that was the
The West Rock.
West Track. The fiber box plant that's going. in.
That one's been issued and we also have two more in the hopper too that are being talked about.
Okay.
So we know there's two more larger commercial projects coming through.
So revenue side is pretty good.
We're very good.
But
And
the numbers just seem to be, I was just surprised.
yeah, and fully staffed, we have, I did give up 3 positions through all the transition. So we've not filled 3 that we currently would have had budgeted. So
At the same time, I do want to say thank you to staff. I have not heard complaints from your customers about slow service. It's been several months.
thank you for
So I
that.
know
We are
there's been a lot
trying.
of change and there's a lot of
There's
both change personnel and new procedures and new bosses and it, at least so far, it makes it look good from our perspective. But
I appreciate that. Like I said, I can't do it without the staff I have and, they're more than willing to make changes. And I think it just helps getting the same processes for the same applications and getting the same answer as they come into.
of course, my district is pretty well built out. It's the city
It
of
is,
Longview,
yes.
Beacon Hills. So there may be other problems out there. I just don't, I don't hear. I don't, Aaron,
I haven't had anybody complain to me.
yeah, so.
That doesn't stop me from complaining, but
Really?
hadn't noticed, I know.
Well, thank you for that. I'll pass that along to staff.
Okay, c'est bon.
Good morning, Mike Moss, Public Services, along with Susan Eugenis, our county engineer. We have some items on the list today. Mainly, these are for tomorrow's Tuesday's agenda. Just giving you some updates on what's going on the agenda. Susan's been out on vacation for a couple of weeks, back in the office trying to dig out of her mess. Thousands of emails. So she wants to make sure you guys are up to speed on these projects that are ongoing.
So good morning, Susan Eugenis. So the first item that we were going to talk about briefly was the striping contract. So we awarded that prior to my vacation. So we awarded that on 6/6. So we have on the agenda just the contract execution. As a reminder, that's $884,000 of worth of paint stripe for, let's see if I can read the miles without my glasses. 416 miles of center line striping and 517 of fog line. So, and that's the county's portion only. So I wanted to kind of bring you an update on the Erick Creek Culvert project. On the agenda is an amendment for one of our, for our acquisition company. We are in the process of, we've gone out for RFQ, received our responses, and I'm working on getting the contracts back for new consultants. But the Erick Creek Culvert project is the protect funding that we're getting through the state, and we have the very tight deadline of making it obligation by September 30. So to keep us rolling along, we are asking to amend Epic's contract so that they can obtain the right of way for us so that we can hopefully meet our deadline.
And that's on the consent agenda.
That is on the consent agenda. I believe it is number. It's like 7. Consent agenda number 7.
Okay, thank you.
That's the consulting, sir. That's not acquisition of, right?
This is an acquisition service. Yes, no, this is not the cost of the acquisition. This is the cost for the consultant.
Epic will negotiate with the landowners.
Yes. The appraisals have already been completed. We're working with WashDOT to get our right-of-way approval so that we can begin negotiations. We just want to have this all in place. So when they say go, we can go so we can keep this moving. It's been a testament of how fast we can get stuff done and pester consultants in this project. If we make it, I'll be really impressed.
Although it's been on our 6-year list for quite some time, but
Yes.
once we finally reached the point where we got the funding. done,
Funding.
now we-
Yeah, they gave us a really tight deadline, so we've been working fast.
So I want to go back just for a second. The striping contract, you said, we have an agenda that said it was awarded in June.
Yes,
The bid opening was in June. So we found out who had the lowest bid. This is the next step where we're signing the contract.
yes,
right?
this is signing the
Okay,
contract.
so that's kind of that's the award. It's not official until we sign, right?
Well, the execute, correct,
Okay.
but we
I
go
just-
ahead and
I-
award, we do the award and then the execution as 2 separate things. We award to the lowest bidder, then we get our contract in place. So you actually see the bid opening, Kelly does.
Right.
Then generally the next week or 2 weeks later, we come with the award saying this guy has all his paperwork in place. And then this is the third time it comes up when we execute it. I guess you actually see it 4 times because we do the call for bids. So it's a short period. You guys keep hearing me talk about the same project over and over again.
Yeah, a key issue for us would be our approval, anything going awry and each step of the way can stop everything.
Correct. So if something had happened between the award and now, and they all of a sudden were saying, no, that's not the price, we would be coming back a completely different.
Right, or we look at it and we say, no, then that's
Yes.
dead too.
We had some big catastrophe and we need the $884,000 to build a new bridge or whatever could have happened. So
Okay, thank you.
And I like to add that we do the bid award on motion item, especially for that dollar amount. There's a certain threshold we make sure we put on the motion item. This is on consent because you guys on 6.6 talked about it as a motion item. Then we come back for contract execution. And that's when we usually stick most of these items on consent at that point. So that way you're not talking about the same item twice in motion. But if you want to change that, that's up to you guys. But a lot of times on consent, you guys ask questions if you have them at that point anyway.
Yeah, this is more confusing because of the 4th of July. We had no Tuesday and all that.
So then the next item, which is also on consent, is item number 9. It's an amendment number 1 to a professional service agreement with Windsor Engineering. The Windsor Engineering is under contract to redesign the large on-site septic system at Camelot. When we were doing the 30% design phase, they looked at alternatives of tanks, and they have come back with their original proposal was we're just going to go, we need a 55,000 gallon tank and we're going to buy this one. After their cost analysis in that very brief beginning function, they found that by designing a cast in place tank, it will save us somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $75,000. It'll cost us this amendment amount of $8,800 to their design services. So that's why we're amending their contract and bringing this forward.
Okay.
So we're spending about $9,000 to save $41,000 to $70,000. So.
You know what's on my mind. How did we get to her in the first place?
So then where am I? Oh, Woodbrook. So the Woodbrook, now we're moving, there's a Woodbrook on the motion item is motion item. So that would be number 13. It's a amendment to the professional services agreement that we have with Gibson Olson. So when we originally signed the contract, we were under the understanding from Ecology that we have issues with our Woodbrook plant. We needed to do an alternative study to figure out how we're going to replace it. So the original contract we signed with Gibson Olson was to do that. So Gibson Olson had a meeting with Ecology, a scoping meeting to make sure that they were going to provide a report that Ecology would accept. And they came back with, oh, well, no, you're missing a step. You jumped ahead in the process. Before you do that, you need to do a year of sampling from your discharge with all these constituents, and you need to do an I&I study of the system. So this amendment to their contract is now to add that work for them to be doing the sampling and the sampling analysis and doing the I&I study.
An additional year of study,
Yes.
because that's a pretty significant jump in the total project.
Yes, yeah, that is why it's so significant. They're doing a year of sampling and they're doing an I&I study and determining what we need to do for the system. The system then upgrade it so we can then say, okay, this is our real flow because we've got our I&I down to an acceptable level. So that is why we're having the great big increase of, what was it, $101,000. So it is a completely separate design effort.
I&I is an important component to keep track of, because that's actually code for treating rainwater.
Yes,
If you've got a leaky system, you suck in the drain water and sometimes dirt, and it causes havoc, and you end up treating stuff other than sewage.
and that
raising
was what
costs that
happens in
way.
this system.
When the city of Longview did an I&I study, the end result, once it was fixed, very costly fix, our share of the water treatment facility went down from like a third to 20% because we had a much more efficient system. And that was nice, except there were an awful lot of laterals that had to be replaced at owners' owner's costs, and we actually used community development block grant funds for the low-income neighborhoods to cover those. So this is not particularly a low-income neighborhood, although the housing stock in Woodbrook varies significantly, but you might need to keep that in mind if that becomes an issue of the laterals just no longer working, causing a lot of rainwater to get sucked in.
And I will forewarn you before the day they go out and do the smoke test, and we will warn the fire department. Because if you've ever, one of the common things they do on an I&I study is they'll blow smoke through the system, and it will look like the neighborhood's on fire if they have downspouts connected and all kinds of weird things, because then you'll have smoke coming out of people's gutters, and you'll see smoke coming out of people's yards because their pipes are that damaged. It's a crazy sight, but that is one of the ways they determine where issues are.
This is pretty much a mandate from the state that we have to go through this.
Yes.
This isn't the thing that we were spending ARPA monies for improvements on all of our water and sewer infrastructure.
No, this was not one of our ARPA funded projects because we didn't think we'd be able to meet the timeline to do the improvements. So we left this one off the
Okay.
list.
Somehow I thought it was on. Okay, that's.
I think we discussed it because it's one of our big issues that we know we need to address. We thought that when we were done with the study, if we were still within timeline for ARPA and there was available funds, that we'd come back and ask. That was our plan and the discussion that we had on this project. And that's why it was one that wasn't funded.
Thank you.
So then the final item we wanted to give you an update on is the Cathlamet Road slide. So there are two items on the agenda relating to the Cathlamet Road slide. One is a easement that's on the consent agenda, item number 10, and then item number 14 is the local agency agreement. So in the January 2022 event, Cathlamet Road, it's the embankment slid and we're down to one lane of traffic out there. We've been working with WashDOT to get our DDIR, that's a detailed damage information report, and then get our agreement with the state. The state was very delayed in their process due to COVID and staff changeover. So we finally have our agreement that yes, they're going to fund this. We have been working ahead on the plans because whether they're funding it or not, we need to do this project. So this will build an rock buttress embankment to reestablish the stability of the embankment, get it back to 2 lanes. This is one of the few routes you can go from Cowlitz to Wahkiakum without getting on SR4. The locals know the back way to get between these two. And when there's slides, this is what they use. So we're needing to get this repaired. It makes people very nervous. The state will fund us at 86.5% for the final solution, but our emergency repairs that we did out there, we shifted the road over and did some other work at the beginning. They will reimburse us at 100%. So the local agency agreement and the perspective cover this information. And as soon as the state signs it, we will be reimbursed for the damage money we've done and our design money.
About what's the mileage marker of the slide area?
I have the paperwork, so I can tell you.
It's still in Cowlitz County,
It is still in Cowlitz County.
and it is the obligation of the state. It's a WashDOT thing, right?
It is, it's Cathlamet Road is our road, so it's ours.
That's the bypass to the SR.
Yes, people use it. Locals who know it, it's a winding way between the two. And so,
But the state made the grants available for local roads, so
Yes.
and we qualified because you've got a great grant writer.
no, we were persistent on this one. This one was persistency, that we kept emailing, going, Why haven't we heard back on this one? So this is a milepost 0.56. 0.56.
0.56.
Yes. So yes, we had to be very persistent with all that staff changeover and them not being in the office delayed this. So we were persistent on this project. And we're also receiving funding for Rose Valley Road milepost 7.72. That was the culvert that the end section blew off. And we were given permission by Fish and Wildlife to do a temporary fix. We just stubbed a piece on with a big Band-Aid, literally, and rebuilt the embankment. And we need to go back and replace that culvert so it doesn't happen again. So we have just gotten approval for that one, but that is not something we'll be doing this summer. This is a project we want to get out to bid in the next 2 or 3 weeks so we can have it done before winter.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And we have lots of pictures of Cathlamet Road. We can bring a few of the slides tomorrow so you can see exactly what we're looking at there.
Okay.
And talking about pictures, we also got some pictures of the boathouse. I turned over 2 of those to you guys, the front and the back of the boathouse. This got completed a few weeks back by Highlander Painting Company. I think they're a local company out of Kelso. It's on the consent for the completion letter for about $8,500 for them to paint the boathouse and the trim around the boathouse. So it turned out to be a good looking compared to what it was before. It went with a gray and white color scheme on that. So I don't have any before pictures, but we have the after pictures here.
Does the boathouse have the new roof on it now?
Yep. New roof, new flooring and some HVAC replacement. So it's looking good over there.
I've never been downstairs in the boathouse. What is there?
It's storage for corrections, some weed eaters,
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
That's their work crew.
Yep.
Storage place.
Yep.
It's great. Didn't we have a paint estimate once for like $20,000 that you raised concerns about being excessive?
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and this was less than 10,000 for the exterior of the building, so.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty easy paint job.
I don't know.
Everything is
They have to
big.
coordinate with building and planning. I mean, with the facilities and maintenance. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bad joke.
They didn't accidentally repair the parking area, right?
No, we're jumping on that. We actually got an arborist to look at the trees over there on 3rd Avenue and 1st Avenue by HOJ. I got the report back, I think just last week, saying most of those trees should stay in place. Recommend trimming back a lot of those trees away from the building. I think they earmarked, 7 of the 20-some trees that should be removed and replaced with something else. So we're gonna go out to bid to get that done shortly here.
That
So-
has to be in cooperation with the city, isn't it? Doesn't the
Correct.
city have
And-
guidelines?
And DOT, because it's washed out road there, so they'll, for a flagging program in front there for roads, we'll have to
Not
work with
washed
that.
out, cut trees down because of ice and frost and stuff.
Yeah, they'll be happy to have us trim those back, initially we thought about having them cut completely out, but so that's when we brought the arborist in and they said, no, actually they're good, healthy trees for the most part, but there's a few that should come out. They were really concerned with the overhang, and especially the overhang on top of the facility.
Right.
And so they should be cut back at least 15 feet away from the building, but they recommend keeping them in place to help with the heating and cooling in that structure, mainly the trying to keep that place cool in the summer months. So we want to get that done here shortly so we can still
Even though
plan on.
those are concrete walls.
Well, they said with the windows there for the most part. We're hoping to get this done so we plan on still paving the east and the south parking lot before winter is the plan, so. And probably do the north side in the next phase, which would be next summer, but also do HHS's parking lot this summer also.
The trees alongside the, or on the street side of the messed up the parking lot.
Right.
They're all staying.
They recommend just 2 or 3, I think, on that side to be removed. And they, a few in the islands, they actually, all the ones in the island, they think there's only 4 there that should be removed. And they said at a later date, everything between the HOJ building and maintenance shop should be removed. They said they're in really bad shape. They recommend different trees going in place of those. They said next,
And
good
who's the they?
snowfall or next ice storm, most of those trees will be coming down in that area.
Who is the they in that case?
The arborist, is that you're asking?
Okay.
Yeah, New Day was the arborist that
Yeah.
was chosen to give us a report.
And then you originally had in mind taking all of those trees down.
Yeah, well, initially we thought that might be the case, but I'm not a tree expert, so we decided as a staff, it probably makes sense to go out and have a viewpoint from a third party.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought you got a pushback from the courts or something.
Well, I think the courts probably have, we get different opinions from the courts. Some people like the trees completely out because of the foliage and the stuff that falls in the cars and the extra leaves that clog the drains. But at the same point, the courts were really happy taking them all out near the building because they already have high temperatures in the summer months there. So it was a mixed bag coming from the courts.
Okay. I know the city's philosophy has changed from having uniform species along parking strips to alternating trees because the disease doesn't spread.
Red.
The disease that attracts aphids and has droppings gets interrupted when you have different species on in line. It just doesn't look as uniform, but
Makes sense.
it's more natural, but
Another thing we're looking at mainly on the west side of that structure, we have all the ivy. And that always is a challenge for us. Now it has a lot of blackberry briars growing out of it. Deciding if we just want to cut that back or actually take it out completely. And there's dirt banks built up against berms up against the building there. Actually just leveling all that out and just making it flat through there. Be a lot easier to maintain over time compared to a pretty steep slope with ivy on it.
Jennifer would approve
Yeah, I'm sure she would. Yeah.
because that ivy is a no-no now.
I don't know how many years ago, I think it was just 3 or 4 that they cut it back along that building and it's already growing back up the trees again, up the side of HOJ. So even if you cut it back, you're going to be dealing with this for years to come if you just don't take it out completely.
Of course, if you mowed it regularly, a nice lawn there would
That-
solve that problem.
That's what we thought. Yeah, we flattened it out. That's what we thought about putting some sod down to make it look, it's such an eyesore as it is, and maybe make it look a little bit better if you trim the trees and actually get some of that ivy and blackberries out of there. Still won't make the building any better, but. Oh, right. Thank you. That's all we have for
So-
miscellaneous, unless you have some items.
So earlier this morning, we had a discussion about the morgue building and some of the lingering problems of contractors not installing the right kind of equipment or something, cameras in particular. And the vice chairman brought up the idea of making sure that we have our buildings on an amortization program so that we store up money for building replacements in the future. And I shared that when we're purchasing buildings with bonds, that makes it a little bit difficult to set up the amortization. It's like double billing. But not very many buildings are on bonds right now. So yeah, we should be having something along the lines of a building reserve.
Yeah, we don't have a building replacement fund in place. We use all our capital funds pretty much for capital items from HVAC to rooftops, things like that, but no money set aside for replacements down the road. Something we can work with staff and Kathy to figure out the best plan moving forward.
So it does get to be kind of a political decision regarding taxes. Do you want our taxes to go into a savings account? A 20-year savings account to replace things? Or do we raise taxes after we issue the bonds to make the building replacements? And
Yeah, I was thinking, not only amortization, but because when you can go bonds that you almost don't need to be too concerned about amortization, but at the end of the bond period, I'm hoping you have a good building in good condition. And that requires 5% of the value of the building per year to go into an account that fluctuates as you use it.
Yeah.
And we don't do that.
No, we don't. I know PFD's talked about that and has done that over at the convention center, conference center, but here for the county facilities, we don't have a separate slush fund for other than our.
But we
capital
don't have
fund.
slush funds, period.
Well, not slush funds, but savings funds.
Reserve fund.
Reserves
Yeah,
for,
reserve.
like you may have at your own home. A lot of people actually don't have it at their own home. They just deal with the emergencies as they come along.
Right.
Or they get a second mortgage on their place to pay for the emergency they have. We don't have that opportunity here. And when emergencies come along, we dip into capital funds or we sit in front of you guys saying, hey, we just had a major leak in a roof or HVAC unit that got stolen somewhere, but nothing to really 5% a year that we set aside, but we get the capital dollars and we spend them.
Or by the time it gets serious enough, we spend way too much money. Had we, because of preventive maintenance not being done, we've learned that. It's been interesting in the 10 years that I've been on the board. I entered at a time when staff was absolutely still in shock from the Great Depression and the massive layoffs and I don't know how, if you missed all that, if you came right after, or you probably joined right when cuts were being made. And it was pretty brutal and that had an institutional impact. It became ingrained that we don't have money and we haven't done the right kind of maintenance level because we didn't have the money. And I remember the discussions is, where do we come up with this extra money? And, we had studies that said we need to be spending the 5% a year on preventive maintenance so that we don't have these horrible conditions where all of a sudden we have to put together HVAC systems and new roofs all at once.
Okay.
And so anything we can do to kind of codify that so that it's part of our regular operating procedure and our regular costs is to have adequate monies for maintenance. Because it's been virtually impossible to shift over to that. It's so well ingrained. So there's an opportunity, I think, perhaps with this budget coming up this year. We did, Kathy explained to us that we've got the budget stabilization fund that's been established now with unused reserves. And so that's a good thing, but we have more revenues that we should be setting aside very specifically. Otherwise they get spent by favorite projects and stuff. Anyway, that's just my speaking.
No, it's, if anything, I might think on a grand scale that we shouldn't have a capital improvement plan in the SIP, the way we look at it. If we wanted to build something new, I would have in my mind, and I'm just talking out aloud, that we have no money at all. We go out and bond it. The money we have is to maintain what we have.
And that's what's mainly our capital fund is. It's really not for new
It's not
capital
an improvement,
projects.
it's-
It's
it's
probably
maintenance.
labeled incorrectly. It's ongoing maintenance or new HVACs, new roofs, but it's not for new capital by any stretch.
Right.
So I don't know if that was in your planning for submitting for the budget, or I guess I would suggest maybe spend some time thinking about an approach to see
Definitely will.
what it would look like this fall.
Yeah, it would be for September
We will do that.
amendment. The June amendment will soon be in July. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
For the public, any questions or comments? This is an opportunity if you have them. If not, I know of no other miscellaneous.
No executive sessions
Nope.
today.
Zero.
I don't remember
Good.
the last time that happened.
Beg your pardon?
No executive session
Right.
today. I don't remember the last time that's happened. We almost always have executive sessions.
Well, the executive is gone.
Oh. Blame it on Rick.
Well, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the meeting. You good with that?
Thank
The
you.
meeting is closed. Thank you, everybody.